I'm Julie Lyles Carr. This is the Modern Motherhood Podcast from All Mom Does, and it's the goal of the podcast to help encourage and inspire you for the life you're leading, the kids you're raising, the romance you're nurturing, and the faith walk you are navigating. She found fame early in the Spy Kids movies, and he was a teen heartthrob on Nickelodeon. After twists and turns in their early adult years, they each found a relationship with God and then found each other. Today, I welcome power couple on and off the screen, Alexa and Carlos PenaVega. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
What's up?
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
I know, it's so fun to have you guys. I know so many of my listeners are going to be very familiar. I was having some fangirling going on at my house because everybody in my house knows who y'all are. But why don't you tell the listeners if they don't know or they have been, canceled cable or whatever, why don't y'all tell them who you are and what you do and where you live?
Well, now we're the PenaVegas, but originally I was Carlos Pena and she was Alexa Vega. Alexa did a bunch of, cool movies back in the day, the Spy Kid movies, no big deal. And then I had a Nickelodeon TV show called Big Time Rush, and it was about a boy band, and we toured and did that with music. And we met right at the end of Big Time Rush. Alexa, Spy Kids have been over for a while, right?
Oh, yeah, for a while.
But we met at a Bible study, which is crazy, and we fell in love. I fell in love real quick. It took Alexa a long time, and
that sounds so bad.
But it's okay. It's okay. She was waiting for the Lord to say yes.
There we go.
I was like, God, I don't care what you say. This is the one.
But yeah, we grew.
Yeah, we grew. But a year later, we combined our last names. So now we're PenaVega. We thought it was cool to start something fresh, and since then we've been trying to be that positive light for the world. But specifically with marriage, because marriage, I feel like it's just kind of been like tossed off to the side. Our whole mission is just to be positive light and kind of just let God reflect through us.
I think it's amazing that in the industry that you guys have been in, that you met at a Bible study. I mean, it's so interesting to me that being two people of faith, that you didn't meet on a set, you didn't meet somehow through friends who were like, hey, I know another weird Christian kid. You guys should meet. So that's pretty cool that you met actually outside.
Hey.
I'm just kidding.
No, not. I'm sure not.
So actually, I will help a little bit on that. Our mutual friend, it was his Bible study, and for years, the timing never worked out, but he always knew that we should end up together, and we were always in, different relationships.
She just happened to be married. I happened to have a serious girlfriend. Yeah,
I was married once before. Thank you for bringing that up, Carlos.
It's okay. It's all over the internet.
But what was really cool was Andrew just knew, that's our mutual friend, Andrew knew that God's timing would allow us to meet one day, but he really knew from the very beginning that we were meant to be together. And it just so happened that he had his Bible study going on for years, but we both decided to show up
on the
same time for our first Bible study.
Wow.
It's amazing how God works.
That is so cool. So cool. And so with all of these projects that you had been involved with, at the point that you met in this Bible study, were you both still doing quite a bit in the industry? Were you trying to sort of decide what next steps were going to be coming out of such a big franchise as Spy Kids and coming off of Nickelodeon?
Yeah, I think it was the turning point for us in our careers too. Like, it was like, what are we going to do next? I had just finished my last tour, and I was kind of in a really low point of my life. So for me, it was like, I need to step up and step out, or just kind of get back into my cave and just get into this dark place that I really didn't want to be in. And then Alexa was coming out of that marriage. And
well, I think, career-wise, I was in a place where I was not deep in my relationship with God. I mean, if only we knew what we knew now back then, so many things would have been different. But if you looked at the roles that I was taking at that time versus the roles that we take now, it's night and day. They look completely different. So having said that, when we both stepped into that Bible study, it was like walking through a brand new door. It was a brand new season of our lives. And it was really cool to be able to go through that journey together. There were a lot of struggles because there were so many changes that were happening at the time. I mean, if you look back at just even the stuff that we would post and how we would speak, it looks so different to now. But that's because our relationship was truly beginning with God back then. Even though, we grew up in Christian households, quote unquote, it was kind of just you go to church on Sunday, but that was our only relationship with God. It didn't go deeper than that. But through that first Bible study and through the years, really walking with God transformed our lives completely. Like when you walk with him, you cannot be the same person. You just can't. It's absolutely impossible. So many changes happen, but just positive, amazing changes. And I think that's really reflected truly in our careers.
Right. And talk to me about this because, you both got to experience early success. And sometimes people have a really hard time transitioning to quote unquote real life when they have grown up on the set or they've gotten the accolades or they got the big recording contract or they were really well known. So what was that transition like into adulting for each of you? Yes, once you met each other, but what was that transition like as you were going from being sort of these, child and teen heartthrobs into, oh, wow, there's got to cover mortgages and we got to be able to find checkbooks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So true.
All that's, when you get into this business at such a young age, you're forced to grow up very quickly. Mm-hmm. I moved to LA when I was 18 years old. I got on a show right away. My parents, they flew me there. I remember my dad helped me build my IKEA bed. We set up my apartment. I drove him to the airport and I literally sobbed in my car because I was like, I'm officially alone. Not like, like alone, but everything that I had known was gone. And now I need to grow up. I need to pay my bills. I need to do this, etc. So I think just for starters, the business, it forces you to grow up real fast. Right. Whether you want to or not, that's up to you. There are a lot of kids who are, or I say kids, but a lot of
adults
people
adults
who act like kids who just don't want to grow up and they're stuck in this thing. So I think when Alexa and I met, it was perfect timing because both of us were.
It was a big turning point for both of us.
Yeah, we now had to take responsibility for what we wanted to do in our lives, not for us, but for the world.
I think when we started this industry, and I started when I was really little, so it might be different for you, but when we started in this industry, we started just because we liked it and it was really fun. So the projects that we took on were very kind of selfish. But then when we really started to focus in and go, like, why are we even doing this? Is it for money? Is it for fame? Is it, for the accolades, like whatever it may be? But at the end, it has to be a kingdom-hearted decision. This is our job, and it may look a little different than somebody else's, but every project that we take, it has to have that like kingdom-hearted mindset behind it. In the past, it was just, I like this job because this will really like show off acting chops. Well, who cares if that job isn't going to actually help people? At the end of the day, how do we be a light? And that doesn't mean just doing faith-based movies because we want to reach the people who wouldn't just go and watch a Christian movie. Like if you're not a believer, why are you going to go watch a Christian movie? You probably won't. How do you show Jesus' light in just maybe the ordinary rom-com or whatever it is that people are watching? And for us, it's just about making kingdom-hearted content that doesn't necessarily have to be Christian, but it shows off Jesus' love. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and in that came the responsibility of, okay, now we're responsible for our decisions.
Yeah.
What are we going to do from here on out? Because now we know what we know. Like once you know,
you can't go back.
You can't go back. Yeah. It's always, you got Holy Ghost always there being like, and you're just like, oh, okay.
Have you found that doors have closed or have you found that doors have opened that you didn't expect once you started putting into place, okay, we're going to have a little bit different filter on the projects that we choose to take on?
I think both.
Both, I'd say that once we lined up our priorities with God's priorities, we initially thought we are going to alienate so many things.
And it did. But it was a good thing. It was sure. Things that we did not need to be
right. But we've worked more than we have ever in our entire lives.
But that I was going to say that too. Is like it closed the doors that needed to be closed, and it would feel like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But then God provided in so many other areas that other doors just kind of flew open. And it's one of those things where we left LA, we moved to Hawaii, and we kind of thought this could be it. Like it might stop us working, and instead we've never worked more. Mm-hmm. But it's that obedience to him. We don't want to walk in the wilderness for 40 years. Like had the Israelites just listened early on, they would not have walked for 40 years. And I think it's one of those things where I luckily have a very awesome and obedient husband who was like, no, this is where we're being called to be, so we just need to do it. And as soon as we did it, God opened all of these doors. So obedience really it's a real thing.
Well, and the timing, I think, is incredible. You know, we had Brian Bird on the show a few episodes back, and we have some of the writers coming on who are doing different projects for Hallmark and all of that. And to see the proliferation and the desire for that kind of content, it seems so counterculture to a lot of what's going on.
Right.
And yet, whether you're a person of faith or not, you can't deny that there's definitely a market. There is a niche for people desiring this kind of content. What do you think that is that we're seeing sort of this very interesting turn? While some things on television and some channels that are available seem to be pushing the limits further and further, there's also this real swing toward things that you can have on, and it can just be on while you're around the house. You don't have to be slightly panicked if your kids walk in the room.
Right. You know, I think we are in such a dark place right now in the world. And Alexa and I, leaving here for like a month and working,
You feel it.
you feel it. And I love coming home and just being like, oh, just like, you know, taking that breath. But people are drawn. I mean, it's all in the scripture. They're drawn to the light, you know, so they can't let go of those desires for, you know, all that craziness, but they see the light and they're like, I want more of that. So it's kind of this.
It's that battle. And
Yeah,
I
it's a
think
constant battle.
we've all been there. It's, you know, the enemy knows how to get to you. Like he knows you very, very well. So basically, like if you're not a believer or you don't know Jesus yet, you see somebody who's so happy. This even happened to Carlos, our good friend Andrew, who introduced us. Carlos was like, dude, why are you so happy all the time? And Andrew literally said, well, it's Jesus. And he's like, no way.
I was like, get out of here. Stop giving me that crap. Like, just like talk to me. What's up? You know?
And he's like, no, really, just come to church with me. That's why I'm so happy. And it sounds crazy to somebody who doesn't know that love, but it's because they have never experienced that love. So they're attracted to that light. They want it. But, you know, of course, it's like, well, I know that there's something there, but it's like a higher power. Like they don't want to admit that God is there and he totally loves them, but there are all these little distractions, and it's because the enemy wants to get in the way.
Going back to your question, sorry,
that's me.
But
I love it. Go.
But it's funny that you say that, you know, people are craving that like positive content, because right now everybody wants to do Hallmark stuff. Like all our friends who are actors are like, hey, how do we get in that Hallmark game? I'm like, whoa.
But that wasn't the case 2 years ago.
No.
People would be like, oh, you guys are doing Hallmark? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, ha ha ha. They would like laugh about it.
Yeah, but now everybody wants it because it feels really good. And I think ever since we had kids, for me, I see what's out there and I see the content. I mean, you know, social media, it's so quick. All this stuff is influencing everybody on a daily basis.
Whether you think it is or not.
Right. And it kills me with all this stuff. Like, you have 12-year-olds watching all this crap on TV. So for us, we're trying to put as much of that positive content out there. And I think people like it and it feels good, but they don't want to admit it.
Is there a Hallmark shame going on? Are you saying there's a Hallmark shame?
No. But like, look at Netflix. Netflix is now in the rom-com game.
Right.
Like, is now doing all these
Christmas
movies because they're like, there's too much darkness out there and people need to see the light, but nobody wants to admit that it feels good, which to me is really funny. They're like, yeah, we'll do this, but I don't know why I like it. Hello.
Yeah, because it has something positive to say and it's a safe place. And and in some ways, even knowing that the outcome is going to be happy. You know, we live in such an uncertain world. And so to have that idea when you sit down to watch something, it's going to be okay at the end. There's not going to be something that just leaves you kind of, even heavier is a great thing. Yeah. We'll get right back to the interview in just a moment. How do you want to be remembered? I've thought about this a lot lately, and it's a little complicated to answer. I want people to remember me for the way I loved them or that I was always up for a heart-to-heart conversation, but if you look at how I'm really spending my days, you'd find a big focus on plain old busy. Sometimes the things that seem to take up our time or focus aren't actually the things that are most important. And that's why I'd love for you to check out my newest Bible study from Abington Women called Footnotes. It's an exploration of 4 people we find in the Bible, people just like you and me, who end up being remembered for some things in their lives that they might have thought weren't all that important or influential, but in the bigger scheme of things, were. How do you want to be remembered? Check out Footnotes wherever you buy your books or at abingtonwomen.com/footnotes. Now, within the dynamics of marriage, I love that you guys went on Dancing with the Stars and competed against each other.
Yes.
So I want to hear about this dynamic in the marriage because I think that is a really fascinating experience to get to compete in front of the world with your spouse. How did that all work out for you?
It was crazy. So we were on an airplane going to a film festival, and Alexa got a call and I got a call, and I said, hold on, I'm going to take this to my manager. She'll give me 2. So I was like, okay, how funny. Yeah. So then I, get on a call. And then she's like, okay, you go first. I'm like, no, you go first. Like, no, you. Finally, we're like, okay, I got an offer for Dancing with the Stars. I don't know if I should do it. She's like, I don't know if you should do it. I'm like, why? She's like, well, because I just got an offer for Dancing with the Stars, and I think I might beat you. And I was like, get out of here. So it literally happened all at once, and it was perfect because they had come to me like a couple years before, and I didn't want to, it was just weird. So the timing to do it together was amazing. But I always tell people that experience, it was fun to compete against each other, but I felt like we were so challenged in our marriage, but also in our faith, because this was the first time that we were so open and outspoken about our faith in a public setting.
Right.
We've done little like, oh, hi, I love Jesus on Instagram and whatever. But this was a moment for us we prayed about it one night. I said, I really want to give my testimony, and I want to say everything and say how I got to this dark place and I did this shit. And she said, you should do it. So I did a waltz to Amazing Grace, and we did this whole thing, the testimony. And man, that night I remember being like, this is going to air, and people are going to see my lowest and who I am now. And it was like a moment of like freedom. I was like, man, who cares?
Yeah. That
was me then. This is me now. So I think as a couple, that was amazing for our marriage, but as like for our faith, that was the breakthrough. That was the, hey, nothing else matters. This is why I have you here. And then, she got to open up about a bunch of stuff. And I will add that I did
go further than I did.
Further than
he went further than I did.
And
but it's okay. He's a little more competitive.
But we don't have to talk about that.
My listeners can't see this. We need to post. You go look for it on social media. We'll post some of the video from this. Carlos, you really leaned in to the mic when you said, I just want to mention I did get further than Alexa. I saw a little bit of a little posturing there. Yeah.
Well, she's heard it a little much, so I just want to make sure that it's
still bitter about it. Still bitter about
a little bit better. Now you guys have 2 kids, and I'm telling you, they are the squishiest little babies. I am just, they are wonderful. How has adding parenthood to the docket of all of this, all of the different shoot dates and being on location, and you guys are commuting from Hawaii to go in for a lot of these different shoots. How's that working with the family thing? And how do you think that's going to work moving forward as they get older?
I mean, it's definitely challenging, but it's the most fulfilling thing you could ever ask for. And I feel like you would probably agree. Like, there are many, many challenges and so many changes. Before, when it was just us, you could just walk out the door whenever you wanted to leave.
Right.
Now,
those are the good old days.
It takes like 30 minutes to go anywhere.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where with every new season, you find new ways to grow in our marriage, and
we take it a day at a time. I know that we're going to have to eventually have the conversation of like, once the kids are in school and we have to leave for 25 days to go shoot a movie, are we bringing the kids? Are we going to stay? I mean, it's going to happen. And instead of like sitting in here and the worry of it all, we're just like, let's focus on the now and enjoy this time with them and the ability to take them with us. And when that time comes, well, we're going to need a lot of prayer and a lot of solitude and figure it out.
But after having kids, it really brought us really, really close together, and we learned more about one another, and to be able to look at our kid and see little bits of Carlos in them. It's really beautiful. The fact that like we made these little humans, it's crazy. It's amazing. Like God did this for us. So I don't know. I feel closer than ever and more blessed than ever.
How do you guys handle being on set when you have to be away for a period of time? So, when one of you is gone and the other one is home, how do you handle that in your marriage? Or have you tried to this point to always travel together on set? Like, what are those dynamics? Because we have a lot of people out there that spouse has to leave and go on job site, or spouse is in the military. So how do you guys handle that?
For us personally, we're in a very blessed position to where whenever one of us is working, the other doesn't. We've made that decision just because it's just too hard, especially in this industry, especially the nature of this industry as well. There's a reason why there are so many failed marriages within our business. So for us, it's easier if one's working, the other one is not. That way we keep the family together.
It's just not worth it. I mean, no matter how much money someone can throw at you, if you choose that over your family, it's not going to end well. I mean, like,
it doesn't.
I mean, people are like, oh, well, I'm going to make all this money, so I'm going to just pay them and do this, and we'll go on a trip. And I'm like, we moved to Maui, and a month later, I booked a series that shot 8 months in Canada. And we all moved to Canada, which was crazy. It was like sunny to gloom for 8 months. And thankfully, I have the most amazing wife who was there with me. And I come home and we made the best of it. It was tough on our marriage, and she was even there. But then I see these people who have wives, and they're like, okay, cool, I'll see you in 8 months. The amount of damage that you were doing to that relationship, like, you can't put a price on.
But that's in our industry.
Right.
Like, I think it is different when, like, you are deployed. Because,
sure.
Yeah,
but I can only speak on my experience. So from my experience, we try and keep it together as much as possible, whether that's like, Skyping or just phone calls every night. It's like, we're human. People are going to have feelings and do this. So if you're not working on your marriage, even when you're away.
Right. Being really intentional to keep that connection.
You have to be.
Very intentional.
Right.
But we do have a 2-week rule. So there will be times where, like, for instance, we had something overlap where it could not work out. But the spacing was only like, I think it was just under 2 weeks. Yeah. So we were comfortable with that. But more than that, you get a little too used to being alone. And it's almost like you have to then relearn how to be together. So for us, it's just not worth it.
Right. No, I think it's great that you've decided that you know what works for you and what you're going to accept and you're not. And put boundaries around that. And every couple has to do that. Now, you have a new show coming out on PureFlix called The Power Couple. You guys play superheroes who end up having to go to counseling, which I love. And Alexa, you're pregnant. You're quite pregnant in this series. So you shot this.
Very pregnant.
Yes. So what was the experience of that, going into not only working together as a couple, portraying a couple, but portraying a couple going to marriage counseling? Like, where did reality and fiction just kind of get all mixed up in there?
Well, what I love about it is no matter who you are or where you are, in any marriage, in any relationship, you're going to just go through stuff that you got to work through. Everybody has junk. And with these people in the show, Vince and Gabby were given these amazing blessings of being superheroes. So when they're frustrated, their frustrations may look a little different. One has like the power of fire, the other has the power of ice, freezing things. But their frustrations are like any other. They're struggling and communicating. And what's funny is they're sent to a Christian counselor, and she gives them amazing tips on how to have that strong foundation in God and to really communicate and listen to one another. And it's funny because even though their arguments may not be the same as what our arguments are in real life, ultimately the resolve goes back to listening to one another and communicating with one another to like the best of our ability. And I feel like anybody can relate to that.
That's such a fun concept. And we'll make sure we've got it in the show notes for our listeners to go find it and get to watch the series. So you guys play both, real life couple and couple on the screen, and couple with superpowers and superpower couple in
and
counseling.
A super baby.
Yeah, and a super baby. Yes, in utero. I just want to thank both of you so much for just how lighthearted and fun and all the great things that you're doing, those two squishy babies. And I just wish you all the best as all of these different projects are
hopefully we can see you when you make it out here.
I know. I mean, I'll see if I can come crash on your couch.
Come on.
We got room.
I'll come hold babies.
Yes. Please do.
Thanks so
much.
Have
a good one.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Check out our show notes where you can connect with our guest and find out more. Do me a favor and subscribe and share the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, and leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps get the word out about the podcast, and I thank you so much. Connect with me, particularly over on Instagram. I love me the grams. I'm Julie Lyles Carr there. I'm so thankful to interact with listeners each week. I just love it. So head on over and say hi. Thank you to Rebecca, our content coordinator, and Donna, our producer, the dynamic duo who make this podcast possible. Go to allmomdoes.com for an awesome resource and community for women walking through many of the same things you do with kids and spouses and work and faith. It's such a great place for you to connect and refresh. I'll see you next week with another fantastic episode of the Modern Motherhood Podcast.